بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعزائي طلاب الفرقة الرابعة شعبة اللغة الإنجليزية كلية التجارة جامعة كفر الشيخ، تحياتي لحضراتكم. ونبدأ النهاردة محاضرة اليوم الموافق 23 مارس 2020، والمحاضرة هتكون بإذن الله تعالى عن موضوع المحاسبة عن القروض في البنوك. ده موجود في chapter 4 in your book accounting for loans. وزي ما احنا عارفين اللونز دي هي أهم asset في المودرن commercial banks. Loans are the primary asset of modern commercial banks. لدرجة أن دراسات أثبتت in general أن loans are the largest source of revenue to a bank. They also represent the largest asset item. They account for from 50 to 75% of the total value of all bank assets. There are various types of loans offered by banks. Each type of loans differ from others based on some characteristics, such as duration of loan. Loans could be vary according to its duration from 1 month to more than 25 years. Loans could differ from each other based on its purpose. The purpose of borrowing could be for purchasing real estate or financing business operations or financing consumer and household expenditures, etc. Loans could differ based on the method of repayment. We have loans repaid in periodic payment or in repayment in full, and the renewal of the loan at the maturity date. Loans could be differ from each other according to collateral. Loans may be collateralized or not. Collateralized loans by the property purchased with the proceeds of the loan. For example, a firm would be the collateral for a loan used to buy that firm, and so on. Accounting for loans include 4 types of transactions. When we say 4 types of transactions, we mean that accountant will record 4 types of transactions related to the loans. First type of transaction that accountant should record is the payment of loan proceeds to the borrower. When the loan issued or granted to the borrower, in this moment accountant has to record the amount of loan in this moment. Second type of transactions related to loan issuance is the repayment of the loan. In the maturity date, the borrower repay the loan and they pay it again to the bank, and the accountant in the bank has to record this transaction with a journal entry or make a reverse journal entry to the journal entry made in the transaction number 1. The third type of transactions is recording monthly accrued interest. Monthly accrued interest. Why do we say monthly accrued interest? Because as we mentioned before, commercial banks make a period shorter than 1 year, accounting period maybe 1 month. So by the end of each month, the commercial banks make a finish or a closing to his accounts and make financial statements. In this financial statement, he has to record the accrued interest. So the loan's accrued interest has to be calculated and recorded by the end of each month. The transaction number 4 is the collection of interest. What's the difference between recording monthly accrued interest and collection of interest? Interest could be paid at the end of the duration of the loan, or could be collected 2 times yearly after 6 months, 1 time collection, but the interest accrued or accrued interest has to be recorded by the end of each month. So transaction number 3 is calculating and recording the interest accrued by the end of each month, regardless the collection process. But the transaction number 4 talk about the collection of interest, which could be done each 6 months or by the end of or at the maturity date, or the date of the maturity of the loan in general. So we have 4 types of transactions. Accountant has to learn how to do each one of these transactions. But very important point has to be considered here. Loans or some loans or portion of loans could be deemed as uncollectible. These loans or the portion of loan that deemed uncollectible must be written off, and any previously accrued interest receivable would also be written off. So the net amount of loans only should be shown on the balance sheet. So the bank management has to make what we call allowance for possible loan loss, ALL, allowance for possible loan loss. Allowance for possible loan loss is a contra asset account that subtracted from the gross amount of loans granted to reach to the net loans in the balance sheet. The uncollected loans represent loss like bad debts in commercial companies. So it is important that bank management consider or determine the credit worthiness for their customer in order to minimize the amount of the uncollectible loans. So there is a very important task rely on the bank credit management before granting loans. It has to make what we call the analysis of the credit worthiness of its customers or the loans applicant. Some points that should be considered to determine the credit worthiness or the competency of the loan applicant are the following: the managerial quality of the loan applicant. Managerial quality of the loan applicant. If the loan applicant has a management team that is in high quality, this point represents one point that makes bank management trust on this management team and think positively to grant this applicant the loan. Number two, the ability of the loan applicant to regularly repay the loan and its interest. This point depends on some financial analysis to the financial statements of the loan applicant. Number three, the amount of his capital and possibility to use it to secure the borrowing of the commercial bank. It is obviously that when the loan applicant has enough capital amount that secure or represent a collateral to the loan, in this case the bank management feel trust in this loan applicant. Number four, the influence of micro and the macro environment over the business activity of the company during the current period and in the future. Some type of companies could exposure to some conditions that considered as bad environment or bad conditions that could affect negatively on the loan applicant ability to repay the loan. So the management of the bank has to study the influence of micro and the macro environment of the loan applicant. Number 5, specific risk situation which can affect the borrower's money inflow and consequently result in problems with repayment of the loan. Number 6, the correspondence between the extended credit and the real need for it. It is a very important point. If it is asked of the loan applicant, ask the bank for 1 million Egyptian pound as a commercial loan to buy merchandise, and we discovered that this applicant cannot buy more than 100,000 pound inventory only, so there is no correspondence between the extended credit and the real need for the loan. So the balance between the amount requested as a loan and the real need of the loan applicant is very important point. Point number 7, correspondence between the term of credit and the circulation speed of the fund for raising of which it was extended is a very important point. I don't say that these 7 factors represent all what the bank credit management point that has to be studied, but it is some points that should be considered when or before granting a loan to clients. This 7 points could be a good question in your exam, so I recommend you to study it carefully. It could come in terms of essay question, like state the factors or the main points that should be considered before granting the loan to a specific client or customer. Or the question could be in terms of true or false, but this issue is a very important point. I recommend you to focus on it. Now let's go to an practical example of issuing a loan, and we will start with type 1 or first type of loans, which is the commercial loan. Commercial loan issuance, computing its corresponding interest and so on. Let us take this example 4.1. Assume that the Sun Company borrowed 30,000 Egyptian pounds on March 11, 2015 to be repayable on June 11, 2015 also. That means that this loan duration equals 3 months. The loan agreement includes a provision for renewal of the loan on maturity date in the amount of 15,000 Egyptian pounds and a final maturity date of September 11, 2015. The annual interest rate equals 12%. Required is to record the issuance of this loan and computing the interest receivable on this loan and the repayment of the loan during its period or maturity period. The answer of this example exists in page 100. As you see, on March 11, 2015, we have to record the issuance or the granting of the commercial loan. What happens at that date? What happened is a new asset called commercial loan increased and another asset called cash or cashier checks decreased. One asset increased should be debited. So we have to record commercial loans debit for 30,000 pounds and cashier check credit for 30,000 Egyptian pounds. This journal entry has to be made on March 11. By the end of March, exactly on March 31, we have to calculate interest receivable on that commercial loan. Interest receivable is calculated as the amount times the interest rate. Amount equals 30,000 pounds times 12% interest rate times the period. The period during the March equals from March 11 to March 31st equals 21 days. From March 11 to March 31 equals 21 days divided by the number of days in the year, which equals 365 days. The interest amount equals 207.12. We have to make a journal entry making interest receivable on commercial loan debit and the interest income on commercial loan credit. Interest receivable account is an asset displayed or shown on the balance sheet, but interest income shown on income statement as interest income or interest revenue. The same thing at the end of April 30, we have to repeat this journal entry, but for a period of 30 days. Interest receivable debit loan interest income credit by £30,000 times 12% interest rate times the period, which is 30 days, divided by 365 equals 295.89. By the end of May 31, the same journal entry has to be recorded: interest receivable debit and interest income credit for amount of 30,000 multiplied by 12% multiplied by 31 days divided by the number of days per year equals that amount. On June 11, we have to repeat this journal entry for 10 days only, because this day is the day of the repayment of the old commercial loan. This commercial loan has to be repaid on June 30 according to the contract. You see, the Sun Company borrowed 30,000 Egyptian pounds on March 11 to be the loan agreement include provision of renewal. The loan renewal means that the old loan has to be paid and a new loan has to be issued on June 11. Now we are on June 11. What should be done? What should be done is the old commercial loan has to be repaid. So it is recorded as a credit account. Commercial loan, old commercial loan, when it is issued, it becomes a debit. When it is paid again or repaid or deemed or collected, it has to be credit, as you see. What else? What has to be done also? A new commercial loan is granted for amount of 15,000 Egyptian pound. This new commercial loan has to be debit. Okay, so we make the old commercial loan credit, the new commercial loan debit. What else? The interest receivable now has to be collected in amount of 907.39, where we get this amount. This amount is the sum of the interest receivable for June 98.63 plus interest receivable for the month May 305.75 and interest receivable for April, which equals 295.89, and interest receivable for March, which equal 207.12. The total of interest receivables that has to be paid on June 11 equals 907.39 should be paid now. When we collect this amount, the interest receivable account, which is debit for 4 months past has to be credit to be closed now. To close this account, which is debit, we make it credit. And what is the impact? The impact is we collect the 30,000 Egyptian pound, the old commercial bank loan, and we collect the interest receivable, which amounted 907.39, and we paid amount of 15,000 Egyptian pound as a new commercial loan. So cash account impacted by 15,000, the half of this amount, and 907.39, the total amount of interest receivable. So the journal entry should be made on June 11 equals or seems as cash debit for 15,907.39, commercial loans new debit for 15,000 Egyptian pound, interest receivable credit for 907.39, commercial loan old credit for 30,000 Egyptian pound. This is one example of commercial loan that has been granted to one client of our bank, and this is a calculation related to its issuance, the calculation of interest receivable, the collection of interest receivable and the old loan, and the issuance of a new commercial loan. Dear student, we have to stop here, and we'll continue in the next lecture, inshallah. Up till that date, I hope you good luck. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.